Okay, let's take a look at the other example that we looked at in the previous section, which was 8x squared times y times z to the 15th plus 6x squared times y cubed times z to the 12th. And remember, we found that the greatest common factor, or GCF, of that expression was 2x squared times y times z to the 12th. Okay, now we're just going to use this greatest common factor to factor or divide out from this algebraic expression here. So just like before, 8x squared y times z to the 15th plus 6x squared y cubed z to the 12th divided by the greatest common factor, which is 2x squared y times z to the 12th. And just like before, split it up into two separate fractions. So we have 8 times x squared times y times z to the 15th, all divided by 2x squared y z to the 12th. Okay, and then plus the second term on the top, 6x squared y cubed z to the 12th. 6x squared y cubed z to the 12th divided by the greatest common factor again, 2x squared y z to the 12th. Okay. Now what happens here? So 2 goes into 8 4 times. X squared perfectly cancels with the x squared, that's great. Y perfectly cancels with the y, that's great. Z to the 12th cancels with the z to the 15th up here to leave us z to the 3rd. So this first term simplifies to 4 times z to the 3rd. Okay, so that's going to give us 4 times z to the 3rd. All right, then what we have left here is plus what? Well, 2 goes into 6 3 times. X squared cancels with x squared perfectly again, that's great. Y cancels with y cubed, leaving us y squared. And then z to the 12th perfectly cancels with z to the 12th, leaving us just a factor of 1. So what we have left over from this term, or the result of simplifying this term, is 3y squared. Okay, so in other words, when we take our algebraic expression and factor or divide here by the greatest common factor, then the result is 4z cubed plus 3y squared. So writing that as something that's actually factored is going to give us 8x squared y times z to the 15th plus 6x squared y cubed times z to the 12th equals 2x squared y z to the 12th, our greatest common factor, multiplied by the result of this division here, in other words, what we get after we factor, which is 4z cubed plus 3y squared. So again, just remember that factoring is just dividing. So when we factor using the greatest common factor here, or factor using any method, we're just dividing. Factoring is just dividing. But it's really apparent when we factor by the greatest common factor. It's really clear that what we're just doing is dividing. Because take our algebraic expression, divide by the greatest common factor, and the result is what you have when you actually do the factoring. Okay, so great algebraic expression here, divide by the greatest common factor. Our quotient or result right here is what we get after we factor out the greatest common factor. So that's that example there.